I'm just thinking about passion and feeling and identity and what it is to be a self, and particularly in relation to selflessness, giving things up for the greater good, that kind of thing, and how that selflessness relates to selflessness in the sense of not feeling oneself to be a self, if that makes any sense at all. It's partly triggered by, Gary, your video on Flip TV about passion, which actually I think you posted on YouTube, I can't remember now. But it was about passion, and I can understand all that really. But it does raise some questions for me, at least. I mean, the wobbly style moment. Yeah, because it's all, in a sense, it's all about what you're willing to give up for the greater good, if the greater good's the right word. Let me see if I can relate it to some of the other stuff to do with population. Because if we assume that population is a problem, overpopulation is a problem, and a future which contains 9 billion people is a problem, not everybody will agree with that, but I do. I'd agree with that. Then what do you do about it? And it seems to me the only realistic way forward at some point is something like, if not sterilisation, then kind of voluntary contraception, those kind of ideas. But realistically, probably sterilisation. And I guess, and again, that would be, I'm assuming involuntary sterilisation is out. That's as far as I'm concerned. But persuading people to give up their fertility is quite a challenge, isn't it? I mean, particularly for men, I think. I'm not absolutely sure on that. I know women have a serious investment in that, particularly as they approach the biological clock. But anyway, but certainly for a man, I think that idea of fertility is a if not a defining feature of their self-identity, it's a really important feature. I know a lot of people who've who've said that to me. Really, people do say that, and having an operation to become sterilised is a kind of foundational identity-changing moment for a lot of men. And there's various counselling things around that. You have to redefine yourself, and that's particularly the case if you've never actually had children at all. If you put a couple into the world to start with and then have the op, well, that's less of a it's less of a watershed moment. But if you make this decision that the DNA stops here, that's very significant, I think, and people feel it is very significant. So there's a kind of PR job associated with that, to convince people that they would need to give up that feeling of investment in the future of the DNA in order to be able to convince them to have the operation for, as I say, for the greater good of a world in which there are fewer people. I think the same kind of challenge is perhaps presented, or is buried in what you were saying there, Gary, to do with passion. Because I understand it, what you're talking about, and I'm completely on board and familiar with the idea that, passion and feelings, they came first, before there was rationality, before there was brain functions of a higher order, before there was consciousness, probably. There was feelings, animals learnt to have experienced pains and pleasures first. Pains first, probably. Before anything else. And it's only by the subtle reworkings and recombinations of those circuits that you're able to get things like consciousness and all of the higher order thinking that we seem to be capable of. So yeah, passion is in a sense foundational to our self-identity, in the same way that fertility perhaps is foundational, or feels like it is, at least anyway. So what would it be possible or even viable to say to people, look, the only way this world's going to get to be a better place is if you stop with the passion thing. Just chill out. That intensity is wasted. All your emotions need to be blunted. You need to be able to feel a lot less, less personally, so your own feelings are blunted. both physical feelings, like your own sense of pain might be blunted, and pleasure might be blunted, but more complex feelings might also be blunted. But also, so your feelings for the people and other sufferings in the world will also be blunted. So you can watch animals being slaughtered without, bursting into tears or kicking up a bit of a fuss. Is that a sacrifice we'd be willing to make? I mean, I get the sense from you, Gary, you probably wouldn't. But if push came to shove, if that was the bargain, that we had to draw, either the world continues in its merry way towards increasing, well, some would argue this, but towards increasing intensities of destruction, and all of the problems we have now, or we can make it a great place to live in. We can have a smaller population, we can all get on really well, there'll be far less pain, maybe no pain and suffering at all, but in order to buy that world, you have to spend your passions. That's the cost. Who would be willing to do that? I don't know. I guess it really reminds me back to those science fiction films that I've talked about in previous videos. Films like The Day the Earth Stood Still, and that other film which isn't a science fiction film called Wim Wenders film set in Berlin with the angels. It'll come back to me in a minute. Where there's scenes in both those films where either the guy from the planet, in an advanced kind of futuristic planet, or an angel that's come to Earth, sort of sings the praises of being the feeling beings that humans are. Because we assume that on another planet far, far away, in a technological future, or in a heaven far, far away, in a divine future, there are no intense feelings like that. You have heaven, or you have a technological heaven, but it comes at the cost of human feelings. And as I say, in both those films, human feelings are lauded and celebrated, and missed by angels and men from the future.